14
The
days
arena
ago
was still
in
vibrating
Birmingham.
from the final encore. Backstage, the energy was electric. Crew members celebrating,
Star-studded farewell
instruments being
performance
packed
with
away, security guiding guests through narrow corridors. It had been another powerful
Hometown of
night for
Birmingham,
Ozzy
UK.
Osbourne, a legend who had spent decades commanding stages around the world. But then something shifted. A staff member noticed he had gone unusually quiet. The laughter faded. A chair scraped sharply against the floor. Someone called his name. Once, then again. Louder this time. There was no response. In seconds, celebration turned into confusion. A bodyguard rushed forward. A manager's voice trembled as he ordered space to be cleared. Radios crackled with urgency. "We need medical assistance now." The air felt heavy. What moments earlier had been a scene of triumph was suddenly filled with
In
fear.
2016, he talked
Crew
to
members stepped back, stunned, as trained hands moved quickly to assess the situation. Outside, fans were still chanting his name, unaware that inside those concrete walls, something was terribly wrong. And within minutes, the first sirens could be heard approaching, cutting through the night like a warning that this was far more serious than anyone had imagined. The sound of approaching sirens grew louder, echoing through the loading bays behind the arena. Within moments, paramedics pushed through the backstage entrance, moving with controlled urgency. Their faces were calm, focused, the look of professionals trained to meet chaos with precision. They knelt beside Ozzy Osbourne, quickly assessing his condition. A medical kit snapped open. Electrodes were placed. Oxygen equipment was prepared. One medic called out vital signs while another relayed information into a radio clipped to their shoulder. "Clear the area," a voice instructed firmly. Security formed a perimeter as crew members stepped back,
respect.
some with hands covering their mouths, others whispering prayers under their breath. The earlier celebration felt like it belonged to another lifetime. Outside, the flashing blue lights painted the concrete walls in pulses of urgency. A small group of staff gathered near the entrance, straining to catch any word of what was happening inside. On the floor, the medical team worked with swift coordination, adjusting airflow, checking responsiveness, monitoring heart rhythm. Every movement was deliberate. Every second mattered. The tension in the corridor was almost unbearable. No one spoke unless necessary. Even the usual backstage noise, rolling cases, distant chatter, clanging equipment, had fallen into a heavy silence. Then one medic looked up and spoke into the radio again, voice steady but urgent. They would need additional support, and quickly. Within minutes of the initial assessment, the lead paramedic made a critical call. The situation demanded more than ground transport. Over the radio, his voice remained steady as he requested immediate aerial evacuation support. An air ambulance was being dispatched. Backstage, the announcement sent a ripple of shock through. The small group gathered nearby. Crew members exchanged worried glances. They had seen injuries before, exhaustion, falls, dehydration, but this level of response signaled something far more serious. Outside the arena, security began clearing a landing zone in the service lot. Orange cones were tossed aside. Vehicles were moved. Staff coordinated under flashing emergency lights, their shadows stretching across the pavement in jagged lines. Then came the distant thump. At first faint, barely distinguishable from the city's nighttime hum, but growing louder with every passing second. The helicopter was approaching. Inside, medics continued working around Ozzy Osbourne, maintaining oxygen flow and monitoring vital signs. One medic checked the monitor repeatedly while another prepared additional emergency equipment for transport. Their movements were precise, practiced, a choreography of urgency. The corridor remained silent except for the steady beeping of medical devices and the muted instructions exchanged between responders. Outside, the wind from the descending aircraft whipped across the lot, scattering dust and loose paper. Staff shielded their faces as the aircraft lowered toward the designated zone, its searchlight sweeping across the concrete like a moving spotlight in the night. Time felt suspended between hope and fear, because when an air ambulance is called, it means one thing: every second has become critical. The moment the air ambulance touched down outside, the urgency inside intensified. The medical team remained locked in concentration around Ozzy Osbourne, their focus unwavering as they worked to stabilize him for transport. A portable monitor displayed vital signs in glowing lines and numbers. One medic tracked oxygen saturation levels while another adjusted the mask to ensure steady airflow. A third prepared intravenous fluids, securing the line with practiced precision. Every action followed a protocol, refined through years of training, executed now with calm efficiency. "Stay with us," one medic said quietly, more instinct than instruction. The backstage corridor had transformed into an emergency treatment zone. Equipment cases lay open, revealing neatly arranged instruments. Soft beeping from the monitor punctuated the silence, each tone echoing in the tense stillness. A manager stood at the far end of the hallway, gripping a phone but unable to speak. Nearby, a crew member leaned against the wall, eyes closed, whispering, a prayer. No one dared interrupt the delicate rhythm of the life-saving effort unfolding before them. Minutes stretched. A blood pressure reading was called out. Another adjustment was made. The team reassessed, communicated, responded. A seamless cycle repeated again and again. Outside, the helicopter's rotors continued spinning, a constant thunder vibrating through the building's steel framework. The sound underscored the gravity of the moment, a reminder that the window for safe transport depended on the stability being fought for inside these walls. Then came a subtle shift. One medic studied the monitor closely, then exchanged a brief nod with a colleague. It wasn't relief? Not yet. But it was a sign that their interventions were taking effect. Hope, fragile and cautious, began to enter the room. But the battle was far from over. They still had to move him. Time seemed to lose meaning inside the corridor. Minutes blended into one another as the medical team continued their relentless work around Ozzy Osbourne. The urgency of the first response had evolved into something deeper: sustained focus, endurance, and determination. Nearly 2 hours had passed since the initial emergency call. Yet no one slowed. One medic monitored cardiac rhythms without looking away from the screen. Another carefully adjusted oxygen delivery, ensuring each breath was supported. IV fluids were checked and rechecked. Notes were relayed in short, precise phrases. Every action was measured, deliberate, essential. Fatigue never surfaced on their faces. Training and instinct had taken over. Behind the secured perimeter, the hallway remained hushed. Crew members sat on equipment cases, heads lowered. A security guard stared at the floor, motionless. Occasionally, a whispered question drifted through the silence, but answers were scarce. The uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone present. Outside, the helicopter crew waited with engines idling, ready for immediate departure. The rhythmic thunder of the rotors pulsed through the building like a ticking clock. Inside, the fight continued. A medic reassessed vital signs and called out an update. Another responded with a brief nod and adjusted positioning to maintain stability. They worked in synchronized movements, a quiet choreography shaped by experience and urgency. The stakes were unmistakable. This was not simply another call. This was a life the world knew, a voice that had shaped generations of music now lying silent while professionals fought to keep that voice alive. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, a small but significant improvement appeared on the monitor. One medic leaned closer, verifying the reading. Another checked manually, confirming the change. It was subtle, but real. Shoulders eased slightly. Breathing steadied under assisted support. The team continued their work, but a quiet shift in energy moved through the space. Hope had not replaced caution, but it had arrived. And after 2 exhausting hours, the battle to stabilize him was beginning to turn. The corridor remained locked in tense silence, but something had changed. After nearly 2 hours of relentless effort, the medical team began to notice subtle but meaningful signs of improvement in Ozzy Osbourne's condition. The monitor's rhythm, once erratic and alarming, showed a steadier pattern. Oxygen saturation levels, which had demanded constant adjustment, began to hold more consistently. One medic leaned closer to verify the readings, then checked manually to confirm. Another watched for several long seconds before offering a small, controlled nod. It wasn't victory, but it was progress. "Let's maintain this," the lead medic said calmly, his voice low but firm. The team adjusted their approach, not easing their efforts, but refining them. Oxygen flow was stabilized at a new level. IV fluids continued at a measured rate. Positioning was fine-tuned to support circulation and breathing. Every detail remained critical. Nearby, the equipment continued its steady electronic chorus. Soft beeps, gentle hums, the faint hiss of oxygen flow. These sounds, once sharp with urgency, now carried a fragile sense of rhythm and control. At the far end of the hallway, those waiting sensed the shift even before any words were spoken. A manager who had been pacing stopped mid-step. A crew member opened their eyes after a long, silent prayer. Hope moved quietly through the space, careful not to rise too quickly. Outside, the helicopter's rotors still thundered, sending vibrations through the building's steel structure. The aircraft remained ready, its crew in constant communication, with the medics inside. Transport could only proceed when stability reached a safe threshold, and they were not there yet. Inside, the responders continued reassessing. Blood pressure, improving. Respiration, supported and stabilizing. Heart rhythm, cautiously encouraging. "Stay with us," one medic murmured again, maintaining gentle verbal contact, a practice both clinical and human. Minutes passed under intense observation. No one rushed. No one assumed the danger had passed. In emergency medicine, progress must prove itself over time. Then came another encouraging sign. Breathing efforts synchronized more naturally, with assisted support. Muscle tension eased slightly. The numbers on the monitor held steady instead of fluctuating. The lead medic exhaled slowly, the first visible release of tension since the ordeal began. "We have a window," he said. Those 4 words carried enormous weight. It meant transport could begin soon. It meant the fight was shifting from immediate survival to critical care. It meant hope had earned its place in the room. Still, no one celebrated. Not yet. Careful, preparation began for transfer. Securing lines, stabilizing equipment, coordinating movement routes, confirming communication with the flight team. Every step had to be flawless. Movement itself posed risks, and the fragile stability they had achieved could not be compromised. The corridor remained silent except for medical instructions and the steady pulse of machines. But beneath the quiet professionalism, a shared understanding settled over everyone present. The turning point had come, and for the first time that night, the outcome no longer felt entirely uncertain. With stability finally achieved, the focus shifted from emergency intervention to safe transport. The medics moved with renewed precision around Ozzy Osbourne, carefully preparing him for the journey ahead. Every tube, line, and monitor connection was checked and secured. Portable equipment replaced stationary units. Oxygen supply levels were confirmed. Nothing was left to chance. "On my count," the lead medic said calmly. The stretcher was positioned. Locks clicked into place. Straps were fastened with deliberate care to prevent even the slightest shift during movement. A final glance passed between team members, a silent confirmation that all critical measures were in place. The corridor seemed to hold its breath. As they began moving, footsteps echoed softly against the concrete floor. Security walked ahead, clearing the path. Equipment bags were carried alongside the stretcher, monitors glowing in the dim hallway light. The steady beep of vital signs provided a fragile rhythm guiding every step forward. Crew members lined the walls as the team passed. Some placed hands over their hearts, others bowed their heads. No one spoke. The weight of the moment required silence. The backstage door opened, and the night air rushed in, cool, sharp, and filled with the thunderous pulse of helicopter blades. Outside, floodlights illuminated the landing zone. The air ambulance waited with rotors spinning, sending powerful gusts of wind across the pavement. Loose debris skittered across the ground as staff shielded their faces and stepped back. The flight crew moved forward to receive the patient, exchanging rapid, professional updates with the ground medics. Information flowed in concise phrases, Vitals, interventions, stabilization timeline, medication administered. Every second still mattered. The stretcher was lifted smoothly into the aircraft. Inside, the medical team secured the mounts and reconnected monitoring systems to onboard equipment. Oxygen flow resumed seamlessly through the aircraft supply. The transition had been executed with precision, a critical step completed without disruption. For a brief moment, the lead paramedic stepped back from the aircraft door, watching the team finalize preparations. His expression remained professional, but the exhaustion in his eyes told the story of the long fight behind them. Beyond the perimeter, a small cluster of staff stood in the wind and noise, watching in silence. Some clasped their hands together, others stared upward, unwilling to look away. The cabin doors closed, the rotors intensified, the sound rising from a steady thunder to a powerful roar. Dust spiraled upward in widening circles beneath the aircraft. The helicopter lifted slowly, hovering for a moment before climbing into the dark sky. Those on the ground watched as the aircraft rose higher, its lights shrinking against the vast night above. Inside the helicopter, the fight was not over. Continuous. Monitoring, oxygen support, and critical care would continue throughout the flight. But the successful transfer marked a vital milestone in the battle to preserve life. On the ground, the noise gradually faded. The wind settled. The landing zone lights cast long shadows across the now empty pavement. No one moved right away, because they all understood what they had just witnessed, a race against time, a battle fought in silence, and a fragile hope lifted into the night sky. Outside the arena, word of the emergency had spread like wildfire. At first, it was just whispers among those leaving the venue. Did you hear? Something happened backstage. Phones were pulled from pockets, texts flew, calls were made, and social media lit up with speculation. News outlets had already begun, reporting the situation, though details were scarce. A growing crowd of fans gathered near the perimeter, drawn by concern and devotion. Some stood silently, clutching merchandise or concert tickets, eyes fixed on the now quiet backstage entrance. Others paced nervously, whispering prayers or quietly sharing memories of their favorite moments from Ozzy Osbourne's decades-long career. The energy that had been electric just hours earlier was now heavy with anxiety and hope. Cell phone screens illuminated anxious faces, some streaming live updates from inside. Comments flooded feeds, fans sending messages of support, strangers offering words of encouragement. The global community united in concern for one man. People from different walks of life were connected by a single thread: love and admiration for a living legend whose music had been a constant in their lives. Even as the helicopter lifted into the night sky, the crowd's attention remained skyward. Every shadow passing beneath the landing lights, every echo of rotor blades, every distant siren in the city reminded them of the battle unfolding above and beyond their sight. Some fans clasped hands, others had tears in their eyes. Few words were spoken. Silence became a form of collective prayer. Journalists and photographers worked discreetly, capturing the raw emotion of the scene. Parents held children close, explaining that heroes are human too, and sometimes even legends need help. Strangers comforted one another, forming an unspoken community bound by concern and admiration. While fans waited, medics continued their work above them, maintaining constant vigilance in the helicopter cabin. Updates were rare, but each small sign of progress was relayed to the ground team, and word traveled quickly through the crowd. Hopes rose cautiously with every report, tempered by the knowledge of how serious the situation had been. As the night deepened, the atmosphere shifted from panic to tense optimism. Candlelight vigils and impromptu gatherings appeared, fans offering symbolic support to the man who had given so much of himself through music. Their collective energy was a quiet, powerful reminder that love, hope, and resilience can reach across walls, distance, and even fear itself. For the fans, this night was no longer about a concert. It was about the fragility of life, the power of community, and the unwavering spirit of a man who had inspired millions. Every beat of their heart seemed synchronized with the rhythm of that fragile hope, holding their breath as one, waiting for news that would define the night. The world watched, united, as a legend fought for survival, and fans held on, silently, refusing to let go of hope. Even as the helicopter disappeared into the night sky, the story of Ozzy Osbourne's life reminded everyone watching that he had never been an ordinary man. For decades, he had faced trials that would have broken most people, grueling tours, health scares, and personal losses. Yet he always returned to the stage stronger, louder, and more determined than before. Those who knew him well understood that this fight was no different. He was a fighter by nature, someone whose resilience had become legendary. Every scar, every setback, every late-night performance carried a story of endurance. Fans had seen the man who once defied odds with sheer willpower now relying on the skill and precision of those willing to fight alongside him. Backstage, medics continued their vigil, aware that survival was only one step. The journey ahead involved critical care, monitoring, and recovery, all requiring focus and persistence. But there was a quiet confidence in the team. They were working with someone whose spirit had never been subdued. Meanwhile, fans and staff alike reflected on what this moment represented. The outpouring of support wasn't just for a celebrity. It was for a man who had spent a lifetime shaping music and inspiring generations. His work had become a shared soundtrack to countless lives, and in moments like these, that shared connection became profoundly visible. Social media posts, candles outside the arena, and whispered prayers all spoke to a community bound not by fame, but by admiration and gratitude. Even as worry lingered, the turning point achieved by the medical team offered hope. Hope that life, like music, could endure even the darkest moments. Each beep of the monitor, each steady breath, became a testament to what resilience and care could accomplish. In these tense hours, the world was reminded of the fragility of life and the power of determination. Legends, despite their fame, are human. They face the same vulnerabilities, the same moments of uncertainty as anyone else. But their legacy, their courage, and their influence often outlast the fear of the moment. For Ozzy Osbourne, this was not just another emergency. It was a reflection of a life lived loudly, fully, and with unshakable determination. And as fans held their breath waiting for news, one truth became clear. The world was watching not just a rock star in crisis, but a fighter whose story had always been about defying the odds and inspiring everyone along the way. The night was a reminder that even legends need saving, but it was also a testament to their enduring spirit and to the people who stand ready to fight for them when it matters most. As dawn approached, the helicopter carrying Ozzy Osbourne disappeared into the horizon, leaving the world below both breathless and reflective. The night had been a stark reminder. Even the legends who seem untouchable are vulnerable, human, and dependent on the skill, courage, and determination of others. Fans lingered near the arena, some still clutching merchandise, others whispering prayers or sharing stories of the artist's music and influence. Social media buzzed with messages of support, spreading hope across continents. Every post, every shared memory, every candle lit in vigil became a testament to the connection that transcends fame. The connection forged between a musician and the countless lives he has touched. Behind the scenes, the medics who had fought tirelessly for hours finally allowed themselves a quiet exhale. Their work had been intense, exhausting, and emotionally taxing, but it had made a difference. They were the unsung heroes of the night, proving that sometimes the greatest battles are not seen by the world, but fought in silence, with precision, care, and unwavering resolve. This moment also reminded everyone that resilience is not only about surviving hardships, but about the people who rise to meet them. Ozzy Osbourne's life had always exemplified endurance, on stage, on tour, and in personal battles. But tonight, that endurance became a shared experience, connecting medical professionals, fans, and a global audience in one collective breath of hope. The night, tense and uncertain, became more than an emergency. It became a story of courage, humanity, and the fragile, precious nature of life. Even legends can fall, but their spirit, and the dedication of those who fight for them can lift them back, closing lines for maximum impact. That night, survival became the greatest performance of all. In the fight between time and life, hope refused to surrender. Heroes wear many faces. Some carry guitars, others carry medical kits. Even legends are human. But together, we help them rise. It was a night the world would remember. A night when fear met hope, chaos met courage, and a fighter's legacy reminded us all that resilience is never born in solitude.